Hey guys, it's almost Christmas, and that's right, we got another Walk-In Wednesday, which means this past Wednesday we had a collection of guns come in that are a little more varied than what we're used to. You're going to want to check these out. Okay, there were enough guns that I broke them into two video sets. This first group is all 1911s and Browning high powers. So I'm going to show you those. And then in another video, we're going to take a look at these guns. Here you can see even more variety because we have this Japanese gun. And again, this will be in the next video. German pistol, Japanese. Oh no, actually this goes with this. We've got ephemera, one of my favorites, Italian, Belgian, Czechoslovakian, a little bit of everything. And then we do have these 3 Lugers and other small caliber pistols. So that'll be for another video. Let's go back to the Colts and the high powers. Okay, these are the guns I'm going to cover today, and from here over are all 1911s or 1911 A1s. Now, full disclosure, most of you know I generally collect German pistols, but I also love the American weapons. I know less than I do about German weapons, so if I make a mistake, please politely correct me. I welcome it. And in some cases, I don't go through as much detail because I may not know all of the information, but I do know I have some beautiful pieces here from World War I and World War II. We're going to start with an early one. In fact, this is so early. This is the inspector proof, by the way. This gun is from 1913, but January of 1913. So it's so early that if you look at the slide, you'll see the date for patent date stops at 1911, whereas this later one, you can see patent date goes up to 1913. So this one was made in January of 1913, high polished finish, really a nice gun. It has the correct barrel, which by the way is an H on the back of the barrel. This rear sight is kind of half moon as opposed to a rectangular rear sight. And again, the hammer is slightly different. People who study these could go through a bunch of differences. I know just enough to go to a gun show and buy a gun and be reasonably certain that I got the right thing. So for example, one of the most important things in buying a Colt or an Ithaca or Remington, any of the 1911 A1s, is to check the barrel. After the war, they would send them back and refurbish the barrels or actually replace the barrels. And so looking at the barrel to make sure that's correct is one of the most important things you can do. And then also you want to make sure it doesn't have rework marks on it, which would be like an SA. And then they have AA, SA. Here's one that was reworked at the Springfield Arsenal, SA. So that's an example of that. But this is all original, not been reworked, has the original barrel, a good find, and the original magazine, because it's not only two-tone early, again, January 1913, but also keyhole in the back. So you have the keyhole in the back, and then the hardened versus unhardened two-tone magazine. This magazine looks a little bit more worn than the gun. Therefore, it might not be original to the gun. Beautiful gun if you collect these 1911s. This one is also early, but 1940, so World War II. Notice the wooden grips. Usually in World War II, they would have the plastic grips. This is wooden grips, correct for a CSR. Now that is a rare inspector. There were less than 5,000 of them made. You can see here this finish, which is again high polish. A lot of patina here. Probably this was worn and somebody tried to clean it up and maybe they made it worse, I don't know. But this has been wiped down with a solvent that, you know, it didn't ruin the finish, but it removed a lot of the finish. So that's not good, but it has the correct barrel, which would be Colt marked, and then also a large G underneath. So everything is original and correct. It's just really well worn. Now a minty one of these I've seen go at auction at like $12,000, just because in 1940 the United States was not making very many. We weren't in the war yet. Of course, in December of 41, production ramped up. But these are fairly hard to find. Not a pristine gun, but if you're looking for one that's a lot more affordable, you might want to consider CSR inspected 1940 Colt. All right, now you're looking at this one saying, why is Tom showing us these worn guns? Well, you know, whenever I show you really nice guns, you say, why does Tom show me guns that I can't afford? So now I'm showing you this worn gun, but you probably can't afford it because This is a rare first variation Remington Rand. Now, you may not know the differences right away. I could go to a gun show, walk right past this. That would never happen with a Walther PPK. I'd know exactly what I was looking at. But I might miss the fact that this is a rare first variation slide legend. And just so you can see what I'm talking about, the one in the background is the more standard variation, Remington Rand. You can see the font is smaller. Also, the first variation says Syracuse, New York, spelled out. And here, it clarifies Syracuse, NY, USA. So that's just so you know, it wasn't made in Ireland. That's a joke, guys. These were, of course, made in Syracuse, New York. This is the first variation slide. One other difference is if you look at the mainspring housing, you can see on the standard models, it's striped, but on the early model, it's checkered like you would see on a Colt. So that it did have a different mainspring housing. And there are other differences as well. So suffice it to say, this is an expensive proposition because they made very few of these. I believe it was less than 10,000. And so for collectors who like to collect the minutia, meaning I want one of every variation, I just want a beautiful Remington and a beautiful Ithaca and a couple beautiful Colts. But for somebody who wants every variation, again, this is a nice example, not pristine, but perhaps more affordable. Those of you who know the serial number ranges, there it is. And it is in the correct serial range for an early model Remington Rand. Now, variation on the same theme. This is a Union Switch and Signal, which is a rarer maker, not as rare as the Singer or the North American, but this is a 1911 A1 made by Union Switch and Signal out by Pittsburgh, PA. This one is a little more worn. Again, pristine ones go for $9,000 on our website. This one has considerable wear, so it's just a really nice example and quite a bit cheaper than a pristine one. It does have the right barrel. That's a theme that we like to talk about. This is a high standard barrel, which is correct for this gun. You can see the corrosion. This is a Duelite finish, by the way, so it's just a worn Duelite finish, not Parkerized, worn Duelite. Again, it comes in the right serial range, which starts with 104. And also the inspection stamp is right here in a circle. It's hard to read, but for somebody who wants an affordable Union Switch, this would be your gun. Next, we go to a almost new in the box Remington from 1945. So because this is in the box, and by the way, this is what the original box looked like. Sometimes they're numbered here with a pencil. This one, I don't see any signs of numbering. But 1945, they were still kicking them out, but the war ended. So they had a lot of Colts and Remingtons and Ithacas at the end of the war, surplus, and they put them away. This is in like new condition. You see slightly different color between the frame and the slide. And that was typical in 1945. Again, when I go to gun shows, I notice this. This is a Remington. Really hard to see the logo, but it is the standard logo, of course. There's the inspector proofs, correct magazine, again, near pristine condition. So this is just a really nice example of a late war Remington. It has the correct barrel, and you'll notice there's hardly a scratch on it, so I don't even rack it back because it's that fresh. It's in the almost 2.5 million serial range. So again, very end of production, probably never issued. Certainly never reworked, but this is the way that they came out of the factory. The bore will be mint. Okay, next is another 1911 A1. However, this one is a Colt. People love the Colts. There are slight differences in the grip. Again, if you study these things, you'll know that this had no reinforcing circle, no circle, wide circle, Union Switch and Signal. That has a thinner circle. So again, this gets into the minutia that people study. But if you're at a show and you pick this up, I go, okay, that's the correct grips because I noticed the wider circle. We see the Colt logo, rectangular. I talked about that before. Magazine is correct. It should not be two-tone in World War II, and usually there's a letter right here. In this case, it's S, which is correct. Sometimes it'll be R, different manufacturers. And this has the correct barrel as well. It's a Colt barrel. And what is rarer about this one is WB. Now, that's not Warner Brothers, but WB is one of the rare inspector proofs for the early guns, yet this one is Parkerized. So this one was earlier, 1940, and it has a high polish finish, CSR. rarer inspector. And then WB, just a beautiful example. Look at that front strap, almost no wear. Back strap, you see the checkered mainspring housing in the back. So just a beautiful example of a WB. This one is certainly worthy of my collection, and I may consider buying that one. For our last one, I want to show you this one because it has been reworked after the war. So this was an Ithaca, I believe, a Colts slide, an Ithaca frame. Yeah, there's a Colt on here, the barrel, but it's national match. This actually has a national match NM, national match barrel. It's numbered, reworked and numbered to the gun. Remember I mentioned SA, so that's the Springfield Armory. They reworked this for competition. These basically went to Camp Perry, which I believe is in Maryland. I should know that because it's right down the road from us. Maryland, national match. The Army and the different branches of services had competitions there every year. And so probably some of you've heard of the national match pistols, and they would shoot in .22. This is .45 caliber. So they took standard end-of-war parts guns, put them together, and improved as much as they could. So you see there's an altered trigger. There's altered sights, rear and front, so make it more accurate. A national match barrel, which improves the gun. There's better grip here because it's serrated, and on here it would not be. So there was a lot of alterations. Again, there's a lot of detail that I don't know it all, but I know enough to know that this is a reworked gun for the national match, Camp Perry competition, and this is all matching an original configuration for a national match. So this is just a very collectible 1911 and a different variation that I wanted to show you. Let's move on to Belgian high powers. Now, the Belgian high powers were very popular in their day, which was in the 1930s and into the 40s, because it had the stackable magazine. Before this, all of the guns, such as the Luger and the 1911, World War II guns just had one stack of ammo. This was double stack, and so it was able to hold 13 rounds, which is why that and the nature of this gun, they called it a high power. Again, the factory was in Belgium. But when the Germans took over in 1940, they came in and started manufacturing these for their own troops. This is one of the early ones. You can see the finish is not pristine. It's not mint by any means. So this collector wanted guns that were been there, done that. They didn't have to have, I guess, desk jockey guns, people who just kept their gun in the drawer. These people actually used the gun during the war. You can see all the patina. You can see the wear from being in the holster. And what's rare about this one is it's an early Waffen 103. You can probably see it best right here, but it's Waffen 103, Waffen 103. It's also here. Now the magazine is period correct, but it is not Waffen proofed. So the 103 was one of the earliest production. It does have the tangent sight. It is not slotted, but in a little bit we'll see a slotted gun like this. So this is a Browning high power, and collectors like it, just like the early Colt inspected. That's desirable. Same thing with German inspectors. The inspector number was 103, and so people like it because of the rare inspection stamp. The next one is the more common inspection stamp. It's actually better condition, but it's a 140 stamp. So this was just a later inspector. It still has a tangent sight, and then later they did away with that to save money and production time and just put a standard sight in the back. That was the later variation. Again, it was cheaper and quicker. So this was removed after the early variations. This is a high polish finish. Again, a lot less wear. A valuable gun built during the occupation of the factory, the FN factory. Production on this one with the high polish finish and these early features, probably 1941 during German occupation. Okay, this next one I'm showing you because I actually never saw one before. Didn't know what it was. I had to look it up in van der Linden's book on FN Brownings. I can see that it's slotted, so this is an early gun, pre-war. They did have a stock that would go in here. You hardly ever find the stocks anymore, and I'm not sure you're allowed to buy them with stocks anymore, but it was slotted for a stock. The Germans came in, they stopped doing that. So this is an early gun, but if you take it apart and if we look on the other side of the barrel, you can see right here, it has a barrel that is Eagle 140 proofed. Now, that's not even an early gun. That has to be much later because they use the 140 proof later. And so I didn't know what it was. I mean, I thought, well, this is a variation. It looks correct. It's all matching, barrel matches, slide matches, frame matches, beautiful condition, slotted. And so when I looked in the book, I found the exact page. Here it is. He describes it. You can see here, he calls it the 44,000 series, post-liberation. So they still have parts in the factory. The war has ended. The Germans all left. And so the factory workers come in and they have parts all around. So they start putting together guns for their own troops and for their police to help convince the Nazis to leave for good. He names this the 44,000 range because he found a number of pistols, including 44-104. He states there's only about 150 that are made. He mentions that they will have markings, some of them, not all of them, some are MR marked, and some of them will be Waffen 140 marked. This one is marked 140. If you look at the serial number, you see 4099, and this one is 4066. So close, but definitely in the right range, and it would go up to 4150. So only 150 known, rare variation. Again, for those people who like to collect minutia of, you know, like I want one of every variation. This is a variation that's very hard to find and in incredible condition, almost nowhere, high polished finish, beautifully made, a little bit of scuffing here, and it has a wartime magazine. Phosphated and slotted. So that's a nice find for people who collect high powers. Now, next one, we're now in post-war period. Not slotted, but it is a high polished finish. And so this was made post-war, again, by Belgian workers after the Nazis had left. But in this case, it went to the police. Now, here's the only reason I know that. It has all the standard proofs. It's got a serial number that tells me it's post-war. It doesn't have the tangent sight, but it does have a police property number or rack number. Right here on the tang, it's 755, and when we look at the magazine, we see 755. So that would only be done for police issue, and that's what we have here, a Browning high power, just like the ones made during the war, but in this case, it went to the Belgian police after the Germans left Belgium. And the last one, also post-war, so this is made by Browning Arms and from Belgium, but a little more modern, and it's called the T series because the serial number starts with a T. And the only reason I show you this one is because it's in near mint condition. Actually, the last one I showed you, pretty darn mint, but you can see here, this is in mint condition. T series, Browning high power, and these are a lot cheaper than some of the more exotic ones that I showed you earlier. Now, that's enough for this video. The next video, I want to get this out, and then hopefully within 24 hours, I'll have the next video, and you already got a glimpse of those. Here they are again. These collectible pistols will be coming up next. So you might want to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss anything.